Hello and welcome to Funny You Ask, the programme in which we meet stars of some of TV's favourite shows. Well, in this case, it's not a star of the show, but the writer of the show, which in my book makes it much more important. Let me give you some of her credits. The Liver Birds, Butterflies, The Mistress, I Woke Up One Morning, Bread, and many, many more. I reckon that she's written something in the region of 40 series in the last few years that she's been writing. Her name is, of course, Carla Lane, one of our most successful and probably one of our best writers in the country today. How nice to have you here.
Thank you.
And a chance to have a chat about your life and your work and your private things, because you have a very important sort of, it's more than a hobby, it's a lifetime involvement, isn't it?
A passion, yes.
A passion,
That's
right.
true.
But let's start off with the work. Let's get to the work and get to the rest later. I first remember you arriving at the BBC with another young lady, Myra Taylor.
Yes.
Way back when, and from
23
Liverpool.
years ago.
23 years
Yeah.
ago. From Liverpool, and bright and chirpy you were, and they brought you in to write this wonderful show that became The Liver Birds.
Yes.
And that was Polly James and
Nerys Hughes.
They were the first, but they weren't.
Yes.
They weren't the only girls.
No, we also had Elizabeth Estenson a little later.
Oh, right.
When Polly left. Yes. We did about, I suppose, 14 shows with Polly. And then I went on to write 100 more.
I was going to say, it's getting on for 120 episodes.
Yes, yes.
And did you write with Myra then, or did you write on
I
your
wrote
own?
the first 7 with Myra, and it got too much for her, you know, for reasons that she...
Yes, but you're different personalities, aren't you, really?
Yes.
I mean, you were really, even though you were both chirpy, you were the serious one of the two, I think.
I think so, the miserable one.
No,
the
well, I could say the miserable one, but the serious. Let's start with the serious one.
And she had...
nice woman, I liked her. I thought
yeah,
she was a very nice
Myra is
person.
a dear friend. She had a daughter that was quite young, and my sons were getting to the point where they could cope a little. I mean, they were never on their own, but I didn't have the problem she had of a girl being left. And I had someone to look after mine, and she didn't really. So all that got her down, you know, and I was sort of left on my own. It turned out better because I don't like to have to consult before I write a line.
No, right.
I prefer to do it.
Well, my career has been rather different. My comedy writing has always been with other people, or mostly
You've
with
always
Marty.
worked, really?
With Marty Feldman. When I wrote something with some depth in it, I wrote on my own.
Yes. Yes.
Some educational stuff. But this is not about this, about you. Let's start at your beginnings. On your
Right.
CV, you wrote poetry when you were a child. And
Yes.
you were very interested in it was the poetic side of your nature, which has come out in your work subsequently.
Yes. Sometimes I think perhaps I'm a little self-indulgent in that way. I love embellishing sentences. You know, if I want to write something very ordinary, because the character is ordinary, a little bell rings in my head and says, try another way of saying it, you know. Right. And for that reason, I have to be careful, otherwise all my characters could be the same. But it's why I put a lot of Irish characters into my work, because they talk in this lovely, lilting, poetic way, and I love writing for them for that reason.
Oh, right. That's interesting. I mean, your gift for language goes without saying, but it's part of your Liverpool background because that's a very the use of language in Liverpool is very powerful, isn't it?
People don't associate Liverpudlians with use of language. You know, everybody seems to think
it's
that...
a more mixed community than almost any other in Britain. There's the Welsh, there's the Irish, of course.
Very definitely.
There are Scots there from the docks and so forth, and the English.
And they have this lovely way of being funny and not being aware of being funny. And that's why it works, you know. I always say to the people who work on the show, don't laugh at the end of the line. You ruin it, because that's how I see humour. If you laugh at the end of the line, you've done it, really. It's not, it was useless saying it.
It's better that the audience should laugh rather than the cast.
I think so, yes, much better.
I'm sorry, go on, you were saying.
No, I was just going to say Liverpool is a great place for the creative, because you've got this pathos and poignancy and downright sort of frightening atmosphere in the city. and
Yes, because it's
good for gathering.
it's a very tough town with a very
Yes.
with a very strong background of
A gathering
coming or
place.
going. Yes, a
Yes.
gathering place indeed. A
And
port.
they have these lovely things like Mam, mother, is still very important in Liverpool. She's the queen bee, you know. I think
so?
probably the only place in this country even where Mam is very important. You have to look after Mam. I like that. I love that.
In bread, surely the boot was slightly on the other foot because Mam ran the family like a business in a way.
Well, she did, yes. But if you remember, there were all these lovely moments of Joey looking after her and telling the others, now look, you know, Mam's got enough. Let's sort this out ourselves. It was based very much on what I know about family life in Liverpool.
I mean, your list of credits is a mile long.
Yes.
I've enjoyed several of them. Particularly, I found interesting the Mistress because it was such a difficult area to go
Yes.
into that you were
Yes.
very brave to tackle it, I thought.
I went into the wife's area too.
Yes.
And I had very good actresses, of course. Yeah, I enjoyed doing that. Well, when I write comedy, you see, I don't think in terms of comedy. I think in terms of drama. And I'm really a very miserable comedy writer. I know that, but there's always
All
that
comedy
sense
writers
of,
are miserable.
Yes,
It's
but I
actually-
mean, I put it into my work. But I believe that if the people can recognise themselves, and in the case of the Mistress, I thought they're either wishing they had one, imagining they're having one, have got one, or just think it's awful to have one. Whichever way it is, people think about this. And I only write about things I think people will see for themselves. I don't like to write too over the top because people don't see themselves being that way.
But it's still dangerous ground,
Yes.
isn't it?
Oh, yes, I ran the risk
You've
of
never been
getting
afraid to
shot
go
down.
into difficult areas, though. Your whole
No, I
working
was,
life has been a series of
Pardon me.
adventures.
I was the first to write about, in Butterflies, a young girl who wanted a baby, but she didn't want the man. She thought 2 babies was enough, basically, or more than enough. And it was a very new thing. And I was lucky because I have these 2 sons who used to bring the modern world to me just in their talk. So I knew what the trends were. Do you know what I mean?
How people were thinking.
Yes.
Well, you've always told your own line and worked your own oracles and led your own life very, very personally. Animal line and your animal sanctuary is something that is obviously taken up a great deal of your
Yes,
of your
it takes
recent
all my
years.
money, that's for sure. I've always had a dream since I was a child to have, I didn't think in terms of animal rescue then because it wasn't something I knew about, but I always wanted to be surrounded by animals. And 3 years ago, I packed in from London and moved everything, and I already had quite a few animals from my London home, and all my people that I loved, that is, people who worked for me, and we all moved into the heart of Sussex, in a valley, on our own, no neighbours. The peacocks can scream all night, the cockerels can start at 2.
You've got peacocks, you've got cockerels, what else?
Horses.
How many animals do you have?
About 400 altogether, yes. I work for them. Okay, most people would say, well, what a strange person. But actually, people who come down and sit with me amongst these animals, I mean, we have cats and doves eating out of the same dish, little wild rabbits that we've made better, coming back to breed in my sanctuary and living with us, stealing your sandwiches, you know, real wildlife coming and living with us. They don't want to go away when they come.
Does the animal have to have any sort of qualification to come to your sanctuary?
No, you can bite and sting, and we don't mind if you're ugly. You're welcome.
Oh, I'll pop down.
And we will never put you down, no matter how injured you are. As long as your life is going to be tolerable, we will
I was going to
build
say, what do you
a
do
unit. Well, if we have one-winged bird, for instance, birds like to roost. So they have a platform going up, and they roost with the others. They're allowed to breed, and we let the fledglings go into the wildlife. So we feed the wildlife. We've got owls, buzzards, squirrels, every kind of, because I've got 4 lakes, every kind of you know, fowl that you can think of. Coal ducks, the ordinary ducks, the teal, swans, they're all there. And we monitor all the eggs that are laid, and the day we know they're going to hatch, we net mother and babies, and we take them into a safe unit until the babies are big enough not to be taken by the heron or the crow, and then we put the whole family back on the lake.
But there are enemies in this paradise, the heron and the crow.
Yes.
What do you do about that?
It's nature.
It is, yes, indeed.
I have to put up with that. The thing I don't like about the human being is we know when we're doing damage and we know when we're hurting, and we still do it. But you can never accuse the animal of that. They don't know that they're hurting. I mean, the lion that chases the zebra, he doesn't know about blood and death. He's just simply hungry. So his intent is good, and the excellence of animals has always been my passion, you know.
But isn't man rather like that? I mean...
No, man isn't like that.
Well, woman,
Man is
then.
cruel. No, we're a very cruel animal. There's no doubt about that. But then you see, this is born out of what I know, for instance, about live exports, which I'm fighting vehemently along with a very dear friend, Penny Lewis, who's the researcher. And I formed a company, and the nation is funding me, and we're taking the minister to court on the 12th of September on a case of allowing animals to go in a small boat on a force 9 gale. Young animals, and we've worked really hard at that. And I know, you see, I just know how cruel people can be because of what I've had to look into to get this far in trying to stop this trade. Cruelty is terrible.
Yeah, it is staggering what the human being will do.
I'm telling you,
the question
so
about
sad.
the question about your sanctuary
Yes.
is that a lot of animals, birds and beasts of all kinds, must find their way there because it must be a place where there's plenty of food and they know that they feel.
Oh, they
I'm
do.
sure they sense
you can
safety.
hear them putting their brakes on in the sky. Whoa, look! Oh, that looks good. Whew. I had a flock of 56 Canada geese come in, and I mean they devastate everywhere. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do now? And they shoot them around me. You know, I'm right in the middle of a fox hunting area and a sheep rearing and shooting, and I won't let them near my land, you know, and they all hate me and I hate them, and but we're very silent about it.
Sounds pretty exciting.
It is,
stuff.
because we don't say anything, we just do our own thing, you know.
Have you written about that?
I have a book out at this moment, would you believe? It's now in softback, called Instead of Diamonds, and a lot of it is there, a lot of everything is in that little book. I didn't want to send them away because I knew they'd get shot. I didn't want to lose the paddocks because I have rescued horses. And I thought, I'll just close my eyes and see what happens. And actually, nothing much happened. They lived on my lake. You know, people cull these birds. I don't have to cull my birds. We monitor their eggs. We let their young live. Nature takes its course. We are interfering all the time with nature. We should leave it alone, because I leave it alone and I don't have to kill anything. They all get on. The birds of prey if there are too many doves and pigeons, they will take them.
Yes.